Welcome, everyone, to the July 1st, 2026 Planning Commission meeting. I'm sitting here now. We've got the election of officers that will take place momentarily. But first, go ahead and call this meeting to order and have a determination of a quorum. We have a quorum here. Do we have any public comments?
No, sir.
Thank you. And then next is the election of chair and vice chair for 2026, 2027. Do I have a motion for the election of the chair?
Motion to nominate Ken Halliburton as chair.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for Mr. Halliburton as chair.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Prince?
Aye.
Mr. Rollins?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Vice Chair Averwater?
Aye.
And do I have a motion for vice chair?
I'll make the motion that we elect Jamie Averwater as the vice chair.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Ms.
Mr.
Jacob?
Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Prince?
Aye.
Mr. Rollins?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Vice Chair Averwater?
Aye. I'll vote for myself, I guess.
All right, passes. So Mr. Halliburton's not here. I will let Ms. Averwater take over.
Thank you, Mr. Newman. Thank you. Okay, thank you, everyone. So first, we need to approve the minutes of the June 17th, 2026 meeting of the Planning Commission. Can I get a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Ms. Jacob, please call the roll.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Prince?
Aye.
Mr. Rollins?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Vice Chair Averwater?
Aye. All right, we have our public hearings and our recommendations to the City Council. Item 6A of our agenda, the City of Murfreesboro Design Guidelines and Standards. Thank you, Mr. Wright, for moving all my things. The amendment to the design guidelines, Mr. Newman. Hello.
Thank you, Vice Chair Averwater. Good evening, members of Planning Commission. Tonight we have the design guidelines and standards up for public hearing and consideration tonight. If you'll remember, we've been looking at the design guidelines for quite some time now. We've met with a lot of internal, external stakeholders. We've had an architect in our group, industrial developer, home builder, 2 civil engineers that are in our community very often, and then, of course, staff. And we've had Pape Dawson that has really helped us organize this and get this to a point where it's ready to continue to move forward now. And so what we looked at is what we need to update in the design guidelines with materials that have changed, with maybe some things that have not been as clear to developers and staff. How can we make that more clear? So we think we've done that. We've got a really good product that we'd like to present. And for a little bit more detail on that, I'll have Kevin Gunther from Pape Dawson give a little bit more detail on the changes that were made.
Okay. Good evening, and congratulations, Vice Chair Averwater and Planning Commissioners.
Thank
and
you.
Staff. Pleasure to be here this evening. As Mr. Newman had mentioned, we've been working on this for a while, and I believe most of you have heard this material presented before. So I will move through it somewhat quickly, but with the intent of allowing any discussion or questions, and obviously any public input that would occur during the hearing. We'll be here to answer any questions and fill in details as needed. As was mentioned, I think the committee for this was a very powerful one. There was not only development community represented, but several disciplines, including architects, landscape architects, civil engineers, and planners. So I think we've got some pretty good input into this. just at a real high level, some of the key updates was a general language and format cleanup. We wanted to make sure that the design guidelines were clear and that everything was fitting with current context of the city. The documents that you've received have any changes are highlighted in red, so it's very clear what was previously there as to what's proposed for change. Formal open space was a discussion that took a lot of focus, and that included some correlation with the existing land use that I'll get into in the zoning ordinance. We talked a lot about architectural requirements and created specific distinct requirements for townhomes and industrial uses. That was new. And then also, because there was some city leadership inquiries into it, we visited the issue of the gas canopy pump stations, and then also visited the discussion on colors. So formal open space, we talked a lot about this, and really what geared this was the idea that not every land use, not every building type or building program really benefited from formal open space. So we started talking a lot about where it did fit and where it didn't. And so that led to really creating three distinct categories. One is, in some cases, formal open space will be exempt. In other cases, it will be required. And then there's a third category, which is it may be optional. In other words, if they don't want to use formal open space in meeting the design guidelines, they can do what we call enhanced landscape. And I'll demonstrate a chart for that in a little bit. So, and then also in multifamily and townhomes, there was a lot of discussion about when formal open space applied. We changed that to be really a bar that was measured by density. So if there's 9 DUs per acre or more, that's when formal open space kicks in. And then you also have to look at the chart for land use to determine exactly how that fits. Other housing considerations like assisted care and hotels were considered to be land uses that continued to deserve the requirement of formal open space. And then, as I mentioned, we created a new chart within the design guidelines that matches what you see in the zoning ordinance by land use. So we were very particular about how formal open space applied to every type of zoning use. So for commercial uses, there are really two measurements that are evaluated. One is just pure size. If a site is 5 acres or 40,000 square feet, then it kicks into the formal open space consideration. And then the second criteria would be to go to that chart that I just had described and look at it based on land use. So if those two fall into place and formal open space is needed, there may also be the option for the enhanced landscape option if it doesn't really fit within the building program or the land use type. The other thing that we determined was commercial uses under a half acre are exempt from formal open space. All industrial uses are exempt from formal open space. And there's another category called active area requirements for residential developments that's separate from formal open space. And the conclusion on that was if a residential development is 25 acres or more with lots 6,000 square feet or less, that's when the active open space criteria kicks in. And that's really more about playgrounds and picnic areas and having some kind of more active recreational or use on the open space. There was also discussion that wetlands should be considered, not the wetlands themselves, but the buffer areas around them, if they're treated correctly with trails or boardwalks, overlooks, picnic areas, that could help to meet that active open space criteria. So what you see here is a chart in its simplest format. What we wanted to do is demonstrate this graphically. We felt that helped along with the text additions that were made. And really what you see is that there's 3 places if the enhanced landscape is chosen as an option that this can be applied. One is along the front entrance of a building. The other is along the entire building frontage where the road runs parallel to the building. And the third is when you're approaching the building from an access drive, that can be enhanced landscape. And the developer can pick any one of these 3. So it's an option. In most cases, what that really means is that these are going to be wider landscape beds, and they're going to have at least 3 distinct layers of landscape in them, that being typically canopy tree, understory tree and shrub, and ground cover. The other thing we spent a lot of time on was architecture. And so this included the discussion on commercial buildings, making sure there was clarity on the facades. We talked about building orientation, making sure that the building faced whatever the front of the building was that faced the street was considered the facade that needed to have the frontage criteria applied to it. And a lot of discussions about materials. Materials have changed quite a bit since the original design guidelines were laid in, and especially the use of metal. And then, as I mentioned, gas station canopies. The old design guidelines had an image in there that felt like it was kind of prescriptive. What we did is we really clarified that to make a little more general statement. So those canopies have to be something that have either a pitched roof or some kind of architectural detailing on the perimeter of it that just breaks up that flat surface. Just to clarify on colors, only primary colors are the ones that have limitations on white, bright, or vibrant colors. White is not considered a vibrant color. That was the conclusion we reached. And then secondary and tertiary colors, they can have vibrancy. And really what this does is gives the developer and the staff and you as Planning Commission, up to 9 color ranges, which we felt like was pretty good flexibility. As I said, there's been a lot of changes in materials since the original design guidelines, so we clarified that metal panels could be used. We did specify where that could be applied as it relates to the coverage, the amount of coverage. There has to be some transitions between color and texture and a certain quality to the metal panels. And also, some wood plastics or cementitious trim is allowed. That's really changed quite a bit since the original guidelines were drafted, and we felt like those were materials that did fit with the city's idea of quality materials. Multifamily and townhomes will still consider to be primarily brick, cementitious siding, and stone, and industrial primary materials now allow metal panels with some stipulations that the building is broken up in size. So leaning into the industrial architectural component, really the whole idea is that we didn't want the building to feel overwhelming on massing, so breaking that up into 200-foot increments, and in the case if a building is more than 200 feet, at least 3 distinct facade sections, and then also making sure that if there's an entrance to that industrial building, that it's highlighted so people know that's the entrance. And if there's office or showrooms, there'd be some kind of windows provided. And we felt like there again, some good clarity that provided some kind of quality in the architectural for industrial buildings, but loosened up some of the stipulations that were in there before that maybe were unclear or not necessarily applicable in an industrial case. Townhomes now have their own category for both architectural materials and formal open space. There's a lot of discussion just about how to make sure to break up those facades and make sure there's variations in plane, materials, and colors, roof lines, and then that if something is actually 3 or more stories, that's when it really goes to the commercial type of design criteria. So next steps in this process, we're really on this second bullet. We're here before you tonight to have the public hearing and consideration for adoption. If that goes forward, we will go to council, but that will really be as a consideration of resolution for support. It's not a formal adoption by council because this is a design guideline that would be within the Planning Commission's really purview. And then we've talked a lot about how to continue this process with the committee, and they are very open to meeting quarterly. What that does, that allows us to continue to meet and catch particular issues as they come up and as current issues, are highlighted in the design guidelines. We don't have to do a clean sweep of the whole document. We can kind of focus in. So we're very pleased that the design committee has agreed to continue to support input into this important document. So that concludes my presentation, and be here for any questions from staff, from Planning Commission, or public hearing and inquiry. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gunther.
And Vice Chair Aberwater, I have
Yes.
a few things I wanted to reiterate. Back around 2012, the City Council delegated authority to the Planning Commission to adopt and administer the design guidelines. And so after tonight's public hearing, as Mr. Gunther mentioned, your action will be on whether or not to adopt the amended design guidelines and standards document. The other things that I wanted to mention is I wanted to publicly thank staff. There were a lot of staff hours that went into this. A number of staff members who are represented here today gave valuable feedback, and so we appreciate their efforts. And we also appreciate the efforts of the development community who were on the stakeholder committee and gave hours of their time, countless hours of their time, and valuable input so that we could have a document that represented not only the thoughts of the city, but the thoughts of members of the community as well that are impacted by this document. And one of the members of that committee is here today, not because he has two other items on the agenda, but I think purely because this item is on the agenda, Mr. Matt Taylor. And so I wanted to put him on the spot and thank him and the other committee members for their efforts on this. And we look forward to continuing working with them on other items as we meet quarterly with them.
Thank you, Mr. Blomley. And yes, thank you, Mr. Taylor. Okay, so we need a motion on this then, right, Mr. Blomley? Public hearing first. Yeah, open the public hearing. Okay. I'm sure there are many people here excited to speak on the amendments to the design guidelines. Okay. I will open the public hearing. Everyone who wishes to speak for or against will have 3 minutes, and we will keep time. And I'll open the public hearing. Still waiting. Nobody. Mr. Taylor, anything to share with us? No? Okay. I will close the public hearing, and we do need to vote, because this does not go to council. This will stop here, right, Mr. Blomley?
Yes, ma'am. We will bring it to council, but just for a resolution of support and acknowledgement.
Sure. Okay. All right. Any thoughts from the Planning Commission or Mr. Wright? Was that a motion you were leaning in to make?
So moved, subject to all
Second.
staff comments.
There better not be staff comments on design guidelines. I hear a motion and a second. Ms. Jaco, please call the roll.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Mr. Prince. Mr. Rollins.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Vice Chair Averwater.
Aye. Thank you, Ms. Jaco. All right.
And we will clean that document up. You see, it's kind of a working document, what's in the agenda, so
Great.
we will clean it up for its final form.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone, for your hard work on that. Okay. Item 6B, annexation petition and plan of services for approximately 10.97 acres located along Elam Road. NG Elam LLC is the applicant, Ms. Smith. And we are doing a public hearing and a recommendation to council. Is that correct?
It is.
Perfect.
So as you can see on the screen above, the location here is just north of Joby Jackson on Elam Road, and it happens to be in the alignment of our future distribution drive. I don't know why that's not drawing tonight. Dun, 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 dun. There we go. Distribution drive alignment that will connect back to Elam Farms Parkway. As we have been looking at this particular project, it is zoned in the county as EAC, which is Employment and Activity Center. In that particular zone district in the county, it would allow for light industrial uses, transport, warehousing, multifamily, commercial, as well as office and institutional, but there is no simultaneous zoning application with this particular one because automatically it would come into the city as LI, which is the most intense of those multiple uses that are allowed within the county. The other thing is that as part of their project, when they do develop, they would be required to extend that distribution drive. And in your packet, they have also included a rough concept plan of what they might anticipate that it looks like just for our purposes, but they are not held to it because this is not a planned development. But all parties wanted to, one, work with our city engineer for where her alignment was. To the north of the site, you recently annexed the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and the applicant and their team has been working with the church to get adequate off-site sewer easements so that it can connect to the most close sewer connections, as they cannot connect to the force main that actually comes along the Prologis site. And for those who are not aware of the area, and you can see a little bit better here, this is directly adjacent to and abuts the very large Prologis FedEx site that operates 24/7, as well as another industrial piece here, apartments to the south, again, that church to the north, and then when you look at the zoning for the area, our general plan shows basically general commercial or commercial in around this area. But we do believe that this is where a transition policy does apply well and also aligns with the county's pre-designation as this property being an industrial piece. Staff did go ahead and prepare a plan of services. We provided adequate noticing of those plans of services. And as we looked at all of the various components, again, surrounding uses, we do have a couple of vacant properties that are still outside the city. On one side of Elam Road, we did annex the gaps in Elam Road along this frontage, so we do not have any right-of-way gaps included. Again, you can see that EAC zoning is here and kitty corner to the site. This one, the county has also looked at an industrial development for that piece as well. And then when we're looking at plans of services, we do already service the residential to the north of this site as well as the Prologis site. As far as water, it is CUD territory. They do have a 12-inch line that comes along the front side of the project that can serve the project likely, but they will have to provide all of the appropriate paperwork for what they call a water service availability request. As far as our sanitary sewer, this is where I was talking about that they're looking at the point of connection adjacent to the site. So these two parcels belong to the church, and ultimately they're talking about a location that would come across here, over, and then come down and across that future distribution drive. So in looking at those, they have been working with our Water Resources Department and are looking at the appropriate sizing, and they can provide services for that. As far as fire, there's actually two different fire stations. One is a 3.8-mile proximity. The other one is 4.2 miles. The one that's 4.2 miles would actually be the station that they would send out from today. There are a few remnants of structures on the property, but all of those are anticipated to be removed. This site actually at one point in time had a farming operation and a very large single-family house, which was destroyed by fire years ago. So that would be fully removed from the project site as part of their overall project. Lastly, in looking at drainage, you can see a little bit of the contour lines in and through the project. They would ultimately, with a site plan, have to provide adequate drainage facilities. And again, that drawing that they prepared showed a potential conceptual plan of how they would deal with that drainage in and around the project. So with that, staff also notes that this is actually within our service infill line. It's in our ultimate urban growth boundary as well, and we believe that it is consistent with our transition policy of our long-range plan, and we would support the project because, one, it will allow for that distribution drive access, which earlier we had discussed and really helps provide a traffic connection back down to Joe B. Jackson at a signalized intersection. We also, because it's in the service infill line and our urban growth, it is contiguous with our existing city limits on all 4 sides. And then the annexation of the subject parcel, will not pose any issues for the delivery of services. We have notified this as a public hearing, and we would ask that you open the public hearing, take testimony, and make any proposed recommendations to our council on this annexation.
And Vice Chair Aberwater,
Yes, sir.
if I may, just to reiterate the fact that the request before you tonight is just the annexation and plan of services. The conceptual site plan that's included in the agenda materials is just an illustration of what their intent is right now in developing the property. But what you will be voting on tonight is just the annexation and plan of services. But with that being said, staff feels that it's very important to have this property in the city's jurisdiction just because of the importance of that distribution drive connection. Right now, on both the north end of Elam Road at Manchester Pike and the south end at Joe B. Jackson Parkway, those intersections are less than ideal. If and when this 2917 Elam Road property develops, we will require the extension of Distribution Drive, which gets all the folks who are on Elam Road to a signalized intersection at the south end of Elam Road at Elam Farms Parkway and Joe B. Jackson Parkway. So we have been in constant communication with the various owners of this property over the last 3 or 4 years, putting them on notice that that distribution drive extension is going to be a part and parcel of their development. And so we believe the annexation of this property and its subsequent development is very important to the transportation network. And so we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Sure. No, I appreciate that clarification, Mr. Blomley, because typically we've said here that we don't wish to annex without also a companion zoning. So I think that makes sense if it contributes to the overall traffic plan and infrastructure for the area.
So what are we're bringing it in as general commercial?
It would be brought in as LI.
LI.
So in the county, it already allows light industrial, so if they were to develop in the county, they could develop as light industrial. And because it's kind of a multifunctional zoning district, the most intense zoning district under section, I believe it's 17 of our zoning code annexation, shows what they can go into without a zoning application coming in concurrently with the annexation.
Okay. If there's nothing else from the commission at this time, we can open the public hearing and then discuss more. Is that something? Ms. Smith, Mr. Wright has a question. Can we, before we open the public hearing, sorry. I think we're all trying to wrap our head around it.
Yeah, so I understand what is in the county. And directly south, we have residential of some type.
Yes, sir.
So I usually don't like industrial going directly beside residential, especially when the residential's there first. What kind of buffering is going to be between this residential neighborhood and light industrial?
They would have a type D buffer, and staff has already talked to the applicant about also adding in a berm, because a berm provides additional landscaping separation. And we've asked that basically only light vehicles, like passenger vehicles, are parking to the south. Any of the larger truck traffic would be on the north.
Mr. Wright, when the site plan comes back before the Planning Commission will have the ability to place additional screening conditions.
Okay.
And that's why we're already preparing the applicant for that in recommending that he voluntarily include an earthen berm to put his landscape buffer on top of.
Yeah, I understand this is just for annexation and plan of services. It just, when I'm looking at an aerial and I have residential right there, it's like red flags.
And that is an apartment complex that was, I believe, developed by Bobby Kirby and Jewel Hale about 10 years ago or so.
And it's in the county, right?
The apartment
No.
complex is in the city.
It is, okay. So is there a scenario in which the owner of this property, the applicant, could develop LI without bringing a site plan to the city? I just want to make sure.
No.
Good.
Okay.
Okay. Good. I just want to be sure.
All large-scale site plans, especially if they have any infrastructure for the city, has to come before the Planning Commission.
Okay.
And of course, during that site plan review, you will be able to ask the applicant to locate loading docks away from the residential areas, for example, and other mitigating measures to mitigate the impacts on the residences.
Sure. And any time frame, has the applicant indicated or our team indicated the time frame for Distribution Drive?
I believe that they are willing, or that they are wanting to move forward with development of that property quickly. Mr. Matt Hamilton with Kimley Horn and his client are both here, and they can
Okay.
discuss their timeframe for development. But that Distribution Drive extension would be part of their development. Mr. Hamilton, would you approach the podium?
We'll skip to the good part. We'll let you present. If you have anything.
Yeah, I'm Matt Hamilton with Kimley Horn, and happy to answer any questions, but our intent is to submit for site plan shortly after.
I'll fill it. My name's Chase Curley with Crescent Communities. We're the applicant. We would be the developer. We would be anticipating, in a perfect world, we would start tomorrow. So I think we are just trying to work through the timelines through the permitting process. So it's this would be, something that we build projects, speculatively. So we're not waiting for a tenant. We're not waiting for that other condition for us to advance, other than but for just permitting. So we would anticipate starting as soon as end of this year if we could.
Okay. So then, so why not bring the site plan now?
Because they're not in the city yet. We can't accept an application from them.
And we're not rezoning it. I guess that's why I'm so confused. Okay. And the
If
lack
we
of-
could submit site plan and civil drawings simultaneously,
Sure.
we would be doing that now, but we're following the process.
Okay.
We didn't want to, yeah, and I think they did ask if they could go ahead and submit for site plan review, and we said, with it not being in the city's jurisdiction, it wouldn't be appropriate for them to submit the site plan.
Well, I must say, that would have made sense to me as well. So I think I'm with you on that one. Okay. Well, if that's all from the applicant, we can just open the public hearing and discuss some more.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Wright?
I'm good.
Okay, we will open the public hearing for this annexation petition. Anyone who wishes to speak for or against may come to the podium. Please state your name, your address, and know that you have 3 minutes to make your comments. Please direct them directly to us on the Planning Commission, and we will take note of your questions and hopefully answer them at the end or have them answered for you. Okay, anyone wishing to speak for or against, please come forward. Okay, seeing none, we will close the public hearing, making my job easy tonight. All right, anything from Planning Commission about the annexation petition? If there is nothing, is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Ms. Jaco, please call the roll.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Mr. Prince.
Aye.
Mr. Rollins.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Vice Chair Overwater.
Aye. All
Thank you so
right.
much, Commission.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Annexation petition passes. Look forward to seeing the site plan. Gentlemen, thank you. Next up, we have a zoning application for approximately 11.4 acres located north of Indian Park Drive and along Chieftain Boulevard and Little Eagle Drive to be rezoned from RS12 to RS10. Brian Grover with SEC is the applicant, representing Glenn Hutchinson. You do not look like Brian Grover.
I'm Ryan Robeson. It's kind of close.
Ryan, hello. I'm going to update my notes here, Ryan.
Just as a reminder, Ryan is our new principal planner, started just a month or two ago.
Fantastic, Ryan. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
It's nice to meet you.
You too.
But I also don't see Brian in the audience either. Mr. Taylor, are you filling in? Okay, great. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. As stated, this is 11.4 acres north of Indian Park Drive. If you're familiar with the area, Chieftain Boulevard and Little Eagle Drive currently both stub into the property that we're looking at. They're looking to rezone from RS12, which is a single-family district, to an RS10, which is also a single-family district. The RS10 district requires 10,000 square feet minimum lot size, and then a lot width of 65 feet. The setbacks are the same in both districts, 35-foot front, 25 rear, and then 10 on the side. The future land map designates this area as suburban residential, and the RS10 zoning district is compatible with the future land use map. Staff has reviewed this and would support the rezoning to RS10 for the following reasons. The zoning request is compatible with that comprehensive plan as stated. The RS10 district is a good transition zone between the RS12 properties to the west, and then to the east is a planned development, which is a higher density. And allowing for a slightly higher density on this lot allows for possibly some additional housing, which is always in need here in Murfreesboro. We would ask that the commission conduct a public hearing on the matter and then formulate a recommendation for City Council. And I'm here to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Anything? Would the applicant like to make a present? Nope, nothing from, is that why Mr. Grover didn't come tonight? Yep. Okay, nothing from the applicant. If there's nothing else from the planning department, anything from the planning commission before we open the public hearing? All right. Anyone who wishes to speak for or against, which I think there might be someone on this project. Okay. Anyone wishing to speak for or against, you will come forward after I bang the gavel. You will have 3 minutes to speak and make your comments. Please direct them directly to the Planning Commission, and we will take note of your questions and comments. All right, we'll open the public hearing. All right, don't forget to state your name and address when you come forward, okay?
Good evening. My name is Miriam. I live in 2505 Swanee Place, right next door. I live near the area being considered for rezoning, and I'm here because my family has lived in our home for many years, and one of the reasons we chose this was because of how quiet, private, and secluded the neighborhood feels. I'm just concerned that a zoning change would lead to increased development, traffic, and density that would change the character of the area and reduce the privacy and peacefulness that we were currently seeking. I would ask the commission to consider the impact this could have on existing residents and whether the current zoning helps preserve the character of the neighborhood. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thank you so much, Miriam. Anyone else who wishes to speak for or against this project? Going once, going twice. Okay, public comment is closed. Okay, Mr. Robeson, Ryan. Let me gather my thoughts here. This is an RS, it's currently RS12. Can you just briefly explain what the RS12, what the current zoning of the property is, and then what the requested zoning of the property is for us, please?
Sure. Currently, it's RS12, which requires a 12,000 square foot lot. With the RS10 zoning, which is requested, this would go down to a 10,000 square foot lot. The only other major difference is in lot coverage, where an RS12 has a 35% lot coverage maximum, and an RS10 has a 40% lot coverage maximum.
Okay.
So minimum differences would be about 2,000 square foot in lot size.
Sure. So just to speak in normal terms,
Yes.
It's already zoned residential. It is staying residential.
Correct.
The lots will be somewhat smaller than they
Right.
could be already, but not significantly smaller. And
Correct. 2,000 square foot, you're looking at maybe some smaller yards. House sizes should be roughly the same.
okay, and on an RS10 lot, you're looking at single-family homes,
Correct.
detached from each other, correct?
ma'am.
Okay. All right, and then this is just for zoning. This is just a zoning application. So before anyone actually builds any homes, they'll have to come before us, and we can see a site plan and design standards.
Yes, ma'am. We would see the preliminary plat, which would show the design, the layout. We wouldn't see the home styles or anything, but we would see the preliminary plat. And at 11.4 acres, decreasing from 12,000 square feet to 10,000 square feet, I'd say the difference in the number of lots that they could achieve would be pretty nominal, probably. Mr. Taylor, have you run the numbers on that to see what the increase would be?
I just did the math. I wonder if I'm right. Maximum 49 on RS10 with 41 RS12.
Yes, sir. And I think we've done a concept plan on the RS10, and we've got 38 lots on the concept plan. And so I think that with RS12, I think we gained somewhere around the neighborhood like 4 lots, if I remember correctly, just geometrically with the shape of the property. And I would say that to the east, we have townhomes, and directly south, we have, I think they're duplexes more than they are townhomes, if I'm not mistaken. So I think this fits in the area. It's a wide variety of lot sizes and housing types in the area. And Mr. Hutchinson, the last couple of things that he's been developing, if you go out there, it's all been single-family detached. Houses have been pretty large and very nice. So he wants to continue that on this piece before he moves to the rest of the farm.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Taylor.
I know this neighborhood really well. Aren't there like 6,000 or 8,000 foot lots? There's 10,000 foot lots and 12,000 foot lots right here, plus the townhomes, right?
So what's along Indian Park Drive, if we can go to my computer. So directly south of the parcel that they're looking at rezoning is zoned RSA1, which permits much smaller lot sizes. I don't know exactly what size these lots were actually built out as, but obviously they're bigger than what the RSA1 zone would permit. But then you go further to the south, and it's RSA1, and they're like much smaller lots. These RS10 lots will be much larger than the lots.
That's what I was thinking.
Further to the south
than the lots that are out there.
Okay, any other questions from the Planning Commission or comments?
If there are none, I move for approval, subject to all staff comments.
I have a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Ms. Jaco, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Harris. Aye. Mr. Prince.
Aye.
Mr. Rollins.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Vice Chair Averwater.
Aye. Thank you so much, Planning Commission. And thank you, Miriam, for speaking. All right, next up, we have a mandatory referral to consider, Yeah, we're on to staff reports and other business. I was right. We have a mandatory referral to consider the abandonment of a drainage easement on property located along Gene Dixon Drive and Spearoff.
A little switcheroo.
Say that again. Okay, it's Spearoff Drive. Melissa Casserly and Ethan Arnaud are the applicants.
And just also as a reminder, this is Molly Gilliland, our newest planner.
Welcome.
Hi, Ms. Gilliland.
Thank you for having me. Good evening, Vice Chair Averwater. Good evening, Commissioners. This next item on the agenda is a mandatory referral in which applicants Melissa Casserly and Ethan Arnaud are requesting the abandonment of a portion of a drainage easement along the rear of their properties. The lots in question are 1929 Gene Dixon Drive and 1736 Spearoff Drive, and they're both currently under development as part of Section 2 of the Riverview Cove subdivision. These lots and all surrounding lots are zoned RS15. The final plat for this subdivision was recorded on September 5th, 2025, and includes a 20-foot drainage easement along the entire western rear of 1929 Gene Dixon and extending into the northwest corner of 1736 Spearoff. New stormwater infrastructure adjacent to these properties has been proposed, including the addition of 2 area drains along the southwestern corner and western rear of 1929 Gene Dixon. This new stormwater infrastructure would make the delineated northern portion of this easement surplus. The city engineer has reviewed this request. She does not object to it, but she does require that all construction of this infrastructure would take place prior to easement abandonment, and that the construction plans would be reviewed and approved by both the city engineer and the subdivision developer.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gilliland. Anything else?
Yes.
These are 2 separate lots with 2
Yes, sir.
different owners.
They're just at a corner of these 2 streets. Given this feedback, staff recommends approval of this request subject to the following conditions. Final design and new stormwater circulation calculations for the proposed drainage system shall be subject to the review and approval of the city engineer. The applicant must provide the city legal department with all the necessary documentation, including any needed legal descriptions and exhibits required to prepare and record the legal instrument or quitclaim deed. The drainage easement abandonment shall be subject to the final approval of the legal instrument or quitclaim deed by the city legal department, and the applicant will be responsible for recording the legal instrument or quitclaim deed and for paying any recording fees. With this mandatory referral, Planning Commission will need to discuss this application and make a recommendation to the City Council. Thank you, and I will now open the floor for questions.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Gilliland. Any questions from the Planning Commission about the mandatory referral? Mr. Blomley?
I'm lurking in the background with a comment. I did just want to reemphasize. I noticed that we didn't catch it in the actual numbered comments. That the drainage system will need to be constructed the new drainage system will need to be constructed at a timing that is approved by the city engineer. And so just wanted to get that into the record so that we can honor Ms. Emerson's request.
I'm sure we can make any motion subject to that, Mr. Blomley. Thank you.
While we're adding things, if I may interject as well, I apologize.
I better write
Not
this
already
down.
here. Not necessarily. This would be similar to what Mr. Balmy just mentioned, but it just occurred to me that because the engineers requested that the applicant do work in the city easement before the easement is abandoned, I think it would behoove us to add as a staff comment that the applicant will have to receive a permit or a license agreement that is to the satisfaction of the city attorney prior to the work being performed.
Attorneys always mess up all the fun.
We do indeed.
Okay. So we require a permit for the work done, and what was yours?
A permit or license agreement, if I may.
Thank you, John, for clarifying that. Mr. Blomley?
That the drainage system be constructed with timing subject to the approval of the city engineer, so that Mr. Taylor can work with Ms. Emerson on the timing of the construction of that system.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is that I really need a motion to approve this request for the mandatory referral, subject to all staff comments, subject to the timing of the draining easement being performed in conjunction with the city's team. I got it.
Yes.
And subject to a permit or license agreement that satisfies the legal department. Do I have any motions?
So moved.
Great. A motion?
Second.
And a second. A motion and a second. Ms. Jaco, please call the roll.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Prince?
Aye.
Mr. Rollins?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Vice Chair Averwater?
Aye. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Ms. Gilliland. Next up, we have a mandatory referral to consider the abandonment of a drainage easement on property located along Paul Norman Drive. Laura Brown and Justin Bryant are the applicants. Hello, how are you?
Good evening, Commissioners. This mandatory referral, as mentioned, is to consider an abandonment of a drainage easement on properties along Paul Norman Drive. Those easements are located to the rear of this property, as seen in this picture. In this mandatory referral, Planning Commission is being asked to abandon portions of the existing drainage easements for Laura Brown and Justin Bryan. The reason for this request is to remove surplus for the 20-foot drainage easements in the rear, and this is located in a Savannah Ridge neighborhood. According to Huddleston Still Engineering, who performed the topographical survey, it revealed that there were no drainage facilities within the subject easements, and that the ditch that was intended to be constructed never was constructed. The city engineer has reviewed this request and does not object to the proposed abandonment, and an exhibit showing the location of the proposed easement abandonment is seen in the agenda materials, as well as a letter of intent from Huddleston Still. Planning Commission, or staff recommends that Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to City Council for the following conditions. If approved by City Council, the applicants will be responsible for providing information necessary, included but not limited to any exhibits and legal descriptions, and for the legal department to prepare the legal instruments to formally abandon the easements. Additionally, the applicants will be responsible for recording the instruments and payment of the recording fee. And if I scroll down, you'll be able to see better where those portions of the drainage easement will be abandoned. It's lot 401 as well as 402.
And no lurking on me, or no lurking from me on this one, so.
Thank you, Mr. Blomley.
Move for approval, subject to all staff comments.
Second.
Motion and a second. Ms. Jaco, please call the roll.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Mr. Prince. Mr. Rollins.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Vice Chair Averwater.
Aye. Thank you, Planning Commission. The mandatory referral passes. Last but certainly not least, we have our resident lurker would like to give us updates to our 2026 Planning Commission meeting calendar.
Yeah.
The resident lurker.
I'll take it. I did want to let I believe those folks are the Savannah Ridge folks over there. This item will, I know this is time sensitive. This item will be on tomorrow evening's council agenda for final approval.
Thank you very much. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Vice Chair Averwater. In looking at the calendar for the rest of the year, we had originally scheduled the October night meeting for October the 14th, and that's because of how fall break falls on the week of the 5th, I believe. So we pushed the meeting back to the 14th, and after looking at that, I think what that's going to do is it's going to hinder our ability to, whatever public hearings are at that meeting, to get those wrapped up before the end of the year. And so in an effort to try to keep things moving before the end of the year in a timely fashion, what we're requesting is to amend both the Planning Commission meeting calendar and the Plans Review calendar to move that October night meeting actually to the last day of September, September 30th. We actually have 5 Wednesdays in September, so it works out good. We have an extra Wednesday in September. And so if that works out for the Planning Commission members, we'd like to shift that meeting to before fall break instead of after fall break.
Well, aren't we fortunate?
So moved.
Second. Third.
Motion and a second. Do I need a motion to move the meeting? Okay, motion and a second. Ms. Jaco.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Mr. Prince. Mr. Rollins.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Vice Chair Averwater.
Aye. All right. Any other business from the Planning Department?
No.
Thank you. We stand adjourned.